All right, hearing none, motion carries. Thank you all. We're going to move to the final item before new business tonight, which is the transition plan for sanctioned homeless encampment.
I'll make a motion for 1 A, B, C, D.
All right, so I've got a motion from Commissioner Wright. All right, do I have a second? Second from Commissioner Taylor. Commissioner Wright, any?
I want to make sure that we thank staff for all the hard work that it takes to put together these agenda items. This one has 23 pages of history, facts, and issues. 2 attachments. I encourage people in the community to download this for reference because it is a wealth of information and the process. And I applaud us getting a safe transition plan, and that we can move these people in need into a sheltered environment with the vouchers. And I also want to applaud the businesses that are partnering with us on this. So that goes with my motion.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Commissioner Wright. Commissioner Taylor.
I do support the transition. I visited the encampment several times when it was under different leadership, but I saw the great things that was happening. So to see them being transitioned is really good because the weather is changing. So yeah, ready to vote.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Link.
Yeah, I'd like to present a substitute motion that we hold off on this vote for 2 weeks, and I want to encourage every single one of my colleagues to go down to the encampment and speak with the residents. Speak with the residents who do not want to move into hotels. Speak with Ms. Teresa, who has her little dog. She lost her home when her husband died a couple years ago, and she can't go into a hotel with a dog. I know personally, if I were to lose my home tomorrow, given the choice between sleeping in the woods and giving up my dog, I'd be sleeping in the woods with my dog. There are a long list of reasons why people are not suited for hotel vouchers. Plenty of the folks there would be happy with them, no doubt, but there will always be a group, a subset of unhoused people that will tend to stay in outdoors, whether it's a mental issue that has some kind of claustrophobia or leads them to want to be outside, whether they have a pet, agoraphobia, they don't want to be around a lot of people, or just the fact that living in a hotel, you're not allowed to congregate in the parking lot or in the lobby. You lose that sense of community. So I would like for all of us to, go down there and speak to folks and understand that this kind of low barrier, kind of pseudo outdoor housing should always be an option. And we need to look into that as we look into, finding appropriate property. We could look at more stable structures like sheds. You can buy a shed from Home Depot for a couple $1,000s. And, maybe look into nonprofit land or church land. I know Chattanooga is working with churches who are willing to put some of these structures up on their properties. It also requires working with your zoning laws. So before we vote, I don't think any one of us should be casting this vote without actually going down to First Step Encampment and speaking one-on-one with the residents and understanding what their situations are, because yes, there are many layers and there are dozens and dozens of personalities among these folks who find themselves without what we consider proper housing. There will always be people who will tend to live in the woods.
So Commissioner Link has made a motion to hold until the 17th of October. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Yeah, I second.
Or sure, yeah. I don't need to. Sure. Yeah.
All right, so we've got a substitute motion from Commissioner Link. We've got a second from Commissioner Fisher. Commissioner Fisher, any follow-up?
No, I agree with Commissioner Link. It's sort of like how I feel about the homeless strategic plan. I think we need to go out there and take a look at, like my other colleagues, I've been down there several times. Camp was running well, but I think before we move forward and really understand what that transition gonna look like. I think we need to explain to those residents down there, what's gonna happen, moving forward. And again, just get an idea of, what their thoughts are with that. And again, and you all know I have said this, I'm not exactly sure why we're moving, but, and that's a discussion for another day. But I do know if we are gonna move, then we got to figure out where they need to go.
Commissioner Thornton?
I will support Commissioner Link's amendment, but it bothers me to no end that that camp was running effectively. And we as this commission allowed personal, alleged legal stuff to get it shut down. And I was there. I went like every other month. I know what they were doing. We never got a report on the people who got jobs. We never got a report on people who got homes. We never got a report of anybody who was having specific mental health issues and how that was being handled. I'm very leery about supporting this recommendation, but because we mishandled it when it was functional, I'm willing to give it the 2 weeks.
Commissioner Houle, Davenport, Hamby.
Yeah, speaking to my support for the substitute motion to hold and trying to keep it focused on that, a few of the concerns I have in this transition plan as it's laid out, one is that hotel vouchers just won't work for all the people that are currently being served at the encampment, and there's a real void of clarity around what are we going to do with those folks for whom the hotel voucher won't work. Another concern is, what happens after the hotel vouchers run out? And noting, as we've heard from service providers, that hotel vouchers are among the most expensive per person things we can possibly do, and also that they're only going to work for some. That's not saying we shouldn't necessarily do it. For the some it will work for, but when we talk about the wisest use of our limited dollars, I do have a lot of concerns about that being kind of the only thing we're hinging our hopes on, as well as the fact that the number of vouchers is only about half as many vouchers as there are people in the camp. And I think that speaks to the limited amount of funds more than it does the desire to try to help more people. So yeah, there's what do we do with the folks who aren't going to go to the hotel in the first place? What do we do with the folks who are still in a hotel 4 months from now because we know there's a shortage of units? And that is a big, bold, italicized question mark, I think. History number 79 of Facts and Issues 24 mentioned a proposal that was submitted, only a couple weeks ago. And I haven't seen that at all. I know we received it. Thank you for sharing that earlier today, Manager Williams, for our reference. I don't know until reviewing it how much I want to build any recommendation off of what's put forth there. I guess there's 2 options in it. I see very clearly in this report that staff doesn't really like either of them, but perhaps that's at least a starting place for a conversation about what we can do in the interim. And one key thing that I think has changed since this agenda report was drafted and now is that we just passed the previous agenda item. And so, I'd be curious to have a bit more clarity on how whatever we're going to do with the folks in this camp aligns with the actions that are kind of laid out in the 10 key strategies that we just adopted. So I hope that's some specific enough feedback for staff to have a sense of why I support the hold. And I also, want to acknowledge that 2 weeks is not a whole lot of time, and we are coming up on a real deadline where something's going to have to change by the end of this calendar year. So I don't want to assume that we're going to get everything perfect between now and 2 weeks from now. But I'm hoping that we can get at least a bit more clarity and have a better sense of what we can do for the folks who we've done something for and we still need to do more for. Thanks.
Mayor, I'd like to say something.
Yes, Manager Williams.
So I'll remind y'all again that we have an ARPA data hub where, with regards to homeless encampment, we tracked every month the total residing in the camp, the number of new individuals served during each month, the number who increased their income, the number of residents enrolled in HMIS, the number successfully accessing mainstream resources. the total served during each month. I've let y'all know about that. That's being tracked every month, so we have that. I cannot share with y'all due to HIPAA concerns about mental health events. 17% of the camp residents have exited to permanent housing. There's been 52 total exits. It's on the website. 5% of the camp residents exited to a transitional or recovery program. That's 17 total exits. And you can see the demographics of the residents. So that's been there since you created that position 19 months ago. With regards to delaying it, that's fine. But we have to give 60-day notice if we close the camp. The contract has been projected to end for the last 22 months on December 31st. We're already cutting it a little close. I don't have anybody to manage that camp. I have talked to a security company, and just like anybody else, they've got to have 30, 60 days to ramp up to hire people. So I just, you know, we've talked about, I think we've known since the camp was approved that there was an end date. And we've talked about it, you know, for some months now. And I know it's a heavy decision to make, for sure, but I just want to be careful that, you know, if you think we're in a mess now, we don't have anybody contractually to run it, you know, with the proper insurance and all those things. We don't have the staff to run it. I'm not sure what that looks like.
Thanks, Manager Williams. Commissioner Davenport.
Yeah, Commissioner, Blaine Williams addressed one of my concerns was the fact that we do have a sunset December 31st, and if we do hold it for 2 more weeks, you know, what type of timeline, how can we execute contracts and give notification to those, to the people who are maintaining that camp now? But also, we got an email right before this meeting that's very curious, but about, I guess, First Step wanting to continue the camp, but their contract ends on the 31st at that location, and if they're wanting to continue, you know, are we going to have that discussion, you know, maybe an executive session of where they're planning on moving or going to, or that's irrelevant? I don't know.
Well, the lease, there's a contract and a lease associated with that, and both of those, I believe, expire on December 31st.
Okay.
Those were built sort of with a fuse from the outset.
So that we would get to this day, and then you would have ideas on how to move forward.
Okay. Commissioner Hamby?
Sure, thank you, Mayor, I appreciate it. And Manager Williams laid it out exactly right as far as why we should go ahead and vote on this tonight, simply because of the timeline associated with it, the 60 days we need to give. And certainly, you know, 2 weeks doesn't seem like a lot of time, but it is a lot of time when you're dealing with people's lives, and they need to know what to expect and how they're gonna transition. The theme for the night is I think let's do something. Let's do some things. Let's hurry up and do it. So let's hurry up and help these people get into some housing before these winter months come up, and give them the proper notice. Treat them the way we would treat anybody that we're asking to do something different with. So I'm ready to vote on this tonight, and let's get going. Thank you.
And Commissioner Myers next, and then Commissioner Thornton and Commissioner Houle.
I wanted to, I was trying to find again the place in here, I think I'm right there. Staff has has identified 3 realistic alternatives related to the camp's closure, and the first one is a relocation options all current encampment occupants would be relocated following the Housing First protocols. Relocation options may include hotel vouchers, pending placement, emergency shelter, transitional housing, permanent supportive housing, rapid rehousing, or reunification with family and friends. Now, I understand that there's not a lot of these housing units available, but I do want to point out that the staff recommendation is to try to work with the individuals to find a placement so the woman with the small dog can find a place in here. I was speaking with one of the people who's on the coalition and who was pointing out that in many ways the encampment has worked. It has given people a safe place. I am a person who spent a lot of time in tents, And, a lot of people don't like them, but I'll tell you, a tent can give you a privacy. It can give you a sense of place. You have a place to put it. So I'm not against the encampment per se. But when I was talking to the homeless coalition member, they were pointing out that if we had a homeless coalition that was really functioning and a staff that was together, that they could put together and anticipate some of the, a much stronger plan for moving forward and having an encampment. So, in my thinking, between now and 2 weeks or 4 weeks, we're not going to come up with that new plan for the encampment. But I would encourage the Homeless Coalition and the staff that's recommended to be thinking about that seriously and bring forth other ideas in their strategic plans as they move forward. So, anyway, I'm going to vote with Commissioner Hamby to go ahead with this transition plan tonight.
Commissioner Thorne?
I guess I missed the email Commissioner Davenport was talking about, that they wanted to continue. We got an email this afternoon?
4:30.
What time?
4:34.
Well,
That's
it was in the agenda item, so it was referenced in the agenda
Yeah.
item.
Okay, but there was an email that came.
But Commissioner Hool asked me to share the actual proposal with y'all, and I sent that out before
Yes,
the meeting.
that's the letter that I was referencing in History 79, Facts and Issues
Okay,
24.
okay,
But
okay.
we didn't have the actual thing, we just had the reference to it.
Okay, so if we wanted to honor that request, is the capacity there as far as insurance and all of that stuff? Because we've already talked about the threat of where we are legally with the legal stuff. So if by some, like, oh yeah, okay, I'm gonna support, is the capacity and the legal stuff in place?
Well, Attorney Drake, that was part of our discussion, that we just didn't feel like that the corporate entity had recovered from the dissolution to a state to where we felt like we could continue with them contractually.
Contract expires in December.
So then my next question, even though this deadline was already predetermined, what steps have already been taken? Do we know how many people are okay going to a hotel? Do we know how many people need to stay in the outdoor? Do we have those kind of numbers so we will know where people are at? I mean, has that been, and again, I think that this is another example of a coalition, a homeless coalition, that all of the members should be impacting, just not the encampment folks. So do we have numbers of the folk that need a place with their dog, and how many people can manage in the hotel? Do we have those numbers?
As part of what we've already been discussing, going back some time with the coalition, as the contract was winding down, that we'd have both the cooperation of their staff and Advantage, which has been providing the supportive services out there, begin to transition folks. I know Mr. Mincy, before he was let go recently, was trying to assist folks with finding other places to go to let them know that this was happening. And I appreciate that the coalition did present another alternative, but from a legal perspective, we just don't feel like they've been able to overcome,
So tomorrow, if we had to shut down tomorrow, how many folk we know can be in a hotel and from whatever that, what is that number? Because we know Miss Lady with the dog ain't gone.
Right. I'd have to ask Advantage staff that at this point.
Huh?
I'd have to ask Advantage staff about that.
Okay.
Got a few others who want to provide some input here as we move to a vote. Commissioner Hool.
Sure, I think Commissioner Wright is also.
I have my
seeking
hand up,
to-
just put me on the list.
Put me on the list too, please.
So get on that list. My hope is just that we'll get some more clarity around some of these specifics. I think we have a lot of folks who are trying to keep the ship afloat over there, and we know it's been a rocky road at the encampment, and we got a lot of folks who are staying there who are very uncertain about what's going to happen. I'm hoping that in these next 2 weeks we can get a bit more clarity around who can be served by which of these options. As far as how to use the letter that we get, that's not me assuming that we're going to move forward partnering with the existing org. It's just that they're putting forward a proposal that looks like what we've seen happen in other cities where there is a lower cost per month, to run something like this. And so is there something we can pull from that general concept to perhaps include in the series of RFPs we're going to send out as part of the strategy we just adopted, given that there is funding left over in the strategy that we just adopted? So the previous agenda item that we just adopted left some money for us to kind of do something with. And I believe we got a letter from some service providers that actually suggested maybe we could do something along these lines with that. So maybe that can help us fill in a gap if there is a gap not met by the hotel vouchers, acknowledging we're not going to try to bring even more people into this camp, but also acknowledging that there is a real utility. I mean, speaking to that data that Manager Williams pointed out, you have more people who have exited through this encampment into permanent housing or recovery programs than there are slots at the encampment. So that to me shows that this has really been a success in a lot of ways at helping people who have persistent high need and have struggled to get help at all. I just hope that we would do whatever we can with the folks who remain, and perhaps there's something more we can do than is currently outlined in this agenda item. So that's why I'm hoping we can take 2 more weeks.
Commissioner Wright?
Not in my wildest dreams, especially with everything we heard tonight. I'm shocked that we're not ready to move forward with the timeline that is so imminent and giving the proper notice so that the solutions can be found for those that are there and them not take new people in when we don't have the structure in shape, in place that we have had to run this. I just, in my wildest dreams, I just thought this was going to be just a smooth, unanimous vote of all things. So I'm very surprised that we would want to delay this. We've got people, we had the man talking about how many seniors are in the tents. We got weather coming. I mean, that the lowest number we had in the chart on homeless was in 2020, negative 11%, because we had vouchers. They had roofs over their head. And then we switched to tents in whatever, August 2021. That whole winter was spent setting up the encampment. So the first winter of the 2 years of this program, that people were still not in this safe version of the encampment versus around where we couldn't get the providers to find them. But I just really don't think that we have the time, and I don't think that if the people that were in here earlier thought that we were going to try to keep the encampment at this point in time, I'm just shocked. So I hope that we can move ahead and vote. I hope that we can move forward. We've had key strategies and the timeline for this. October 1 was when a lot of this stuff was supposed to happen for us getting to the point we're supposed to be December 31st with this, and have the vouchers in place, have the hotels ready for the vouchers, have the help that people need, and other options for them. We passed the other 22 and 23, so certainly that passing is moving things forward to help us with the transition that we need from this encampment to real roofs over these people's heads. Not tents, not tarps, those don't count. The point in time count, it doesn't count. I haven't used up 3 minutes all night.
No, I was just interrupting you.
No. I'm going to turn to Commissioner Link, and then we're going to move to a vote. I've often noted that we find ourselves most effective when we're under the 3-hour window, and we're now at hour 6 of public gathering. And so, Commissioner Link, you're providing final comments to this agenda item.
Yeah, I just want to remind everyone that a hotel voucher it costs about well over $2,000 a month. That is more than twice my mortgage for my house in Half Acre and Boulevard. I believe that we can come up with a more strategic way to maybe divert some of those funds to more low barrier housing that could accommodate people like Miss Teresa and her dog, and folks who might get kicked out of hotels for assorted reasons. The hotel managers can kick people out for whatever reason they really like, you know, they catch you smoking in the hallway or in the lobby, or, you know, it's not stable housing. It's really not stable housing, and over and over again, what I hear from the folks at that encampment is they appreciate the stability. They know that their stuff is there, and that it's always going to be there, and that they can come and go as they please. They can step outside their tent. They can hang out with folks and watch TV and hang out on the computer. There is a sense of community and a place for them to congregate near their home and near their stuff. And, you know, they get caught doing that in a hotel parking lot, they might get kicked out.
So we've got a substitute motion from Commissioner Link, so we'll begin roll call on the substitute motion.
Link,
Yes.
Taylor,
No.
Wright,
No.
Fisher,
Yes.
Poole,
Yes.
Culpepper,
No.
Myers,
No.
Thornton,
No.
Amby,
No.
Davenport,
No.
3 yes, 7 no.
All right, so we return then to the core motion from
Right here.
Commissioner Wright.
Yes.
Fisher,
Yes.
Poole,
Do we not have an opportunity to speak to this before we vote now that this is
No,
the
we,
motion back on
we
the
done
floor?
talked.
We've been talking all night.
yes or no?
No.
Culpepper,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
Thornton,
Yes.
Amby,
Yes.
Davenport,
Yes.
Link,
No.
Taylor,
Yes.
8 yes, 2 no.
All right, motion carries. All right, we're moving on to new business, so I need a motion for suspension of
Wait a minute,
rules.
solar light, solar.
We're going to do that after.